Murray on the verge of greatness. Allen looking to maintain greatness. Richardson Hall feeling great. Metcalf greater than we think. There's no shortage of great chatter fueling fantasy value. So stand by for this week's top 5 fantasy headlines. Headline number 1, Murray gaining momentum. Kyler Murray has made no secret of his high expectations for a Cardinals offense that added wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. at the top of the draft. Teammates agree. Tight end Trey McBride believes his quarterback is in position for his biggest year as a professional. He has a ton of weapons out there, McBride said this week, and I have full confidence that he's capable of an MVP season. Of course, Murray has flashed MVP caliber talent in the past, even the recent past. The Cardinals were 7-0 in 2021 when an ankle sprain slowed Murray's and the team's roll. He was quarterback 2 through those 7 games, scoring an average of 24.1 fantasy points per game. Murray returned, but he wasn't able to recapture that early season magic, something that carried over through the 2022 season until his season-ending ACL tear in December capped a 4-win season that led to regime change in Arizona. Murray returned to the starting lineup in Week 10 last season. He started the remaining 8 contests, throwing for 1,799 yards and accounted for 13 total touchdowns, 10 passing and 3 rushing. Murray was quarterback 10 for fantasy managers from week 10 through 18, but the final 4 games, when he completed 70.3% of his passes for 935 yards with 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, they're worth a closer look. The Cardinals led the league in total offense with 414 yards per game, and Murray was quarterback 7 over that stretch. So if the starting point is where he left off last year, and if Harrison explodes in his rookie season, there's no reason Murray can't deliver the kind of fantasy numbers we saw in 2020 when he finished the year as quarterback 2, scoring an average of 24.2 fantasy points per game. For context, Fantasy Life's Ian Hartitz notes that Murray is one of only 7 quarterbacks to average more than 23.5 fantasy points per game in a single season over the last 10 years, and that there aren't many options with realistic pass for 4,000 plus passing yards and 500 plus rushing yards. That rushing equity matters. Looking at the 2024 Footballguys player projections, linked below, only 5 quarterbacks are forecast to have more carries than Murray's 91. 4 of them, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and Anthony Richardson, will be gone before the end of round 5. The 5th, Jaden Daniels, is a rookie going in round 8. Murray is currently quarterback 7 with a late 6th round ADP on Underdog. Daniels is cheaper, but Murray has the proven upside and the supporting cast to deliver. Headline number 2, is Allen still QB1 overall? The question in Buffalo and the streets of Fantasy Nation are the same. How will Josh Allen perform without Stephon Diggs? In case you're just getting up to speed, and if that's you, hit my What's New This Year, each team in 15 seconds article. You'll find a link below. The Bills traded Diggs to the Texans in the offseason and drafted Keon Coleman in the 2nd round. Coleman joins Khalil Shakir in free agent acquisitions Curtis Samuel, Matt Collins, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Chase Claypool in a revamped Buffalo receiving corps that will also be without Gabe Davis, who moved on in free agency. As a result, Shakir is the only wideout on the roster who has caught a pass from Allen. Of course, the team's tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, as well as running back James Cook, have worked with Allen. Kincaid could be the most targeted receiving asset on the roster, while Coleman, Shakir, and Samuel could be bigger factors than current consensus expects. Whatever the case, NFL.com's Eric Edholm believes the loss of Diggs is an overblown story because Allen is the offensive meal ticket here. Edholm believes there may be an addition by subtraction quotient at play, and that Allen might benefit from not having to force feed Diggs or issue targets to the inconsistent Davis. Football guy Jordan McNamara offers more insight into this in his 9 quarterback camp storylines to watch article. You'll find a link to that below as well. While his career per game stats are noticeably better with Diggs, Allen still finished his quarterback 1 from weeks 10 through 18 last year, while Diggs averaged 43 receiving yards per game, was limited to a single touchdown catch, and failed to hit the 100-yard mark even once. Don't overthink this. Allen has thrown for more than 4,000 yards in each of his last 4 seasons. He's averaged 34 touchdown passes, 617 rushing yards, and 9 touchdown runs over that span. More to the point, since 2020, Allen has finished his quarterback 1 3 times and quarterback 2 once. So yes, Allen still merits his quarterback 1 ranking on the Footballguys 2024 draft rankings, and it matches his underdog ADP. But unlike previous seasons when Allen was going in as high as round 2, he's currently going in early round 4, making him a bit more accessible and definitely more appealing. If this is the kind of content you're looking for, you'll love the Footballguys Daily Update, the biggest stories in football, summarized, explained, and delivered straight to your inbox every day. Sign up and check it out. It's totally free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. You'll find a link in the description below this video. And while you're there, do the YouTube-y stuff. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment. Your feedback matters, and I'll reply. Headline number 3, Richardson full go for training camp. The Colts say quarterback Anthony Richardson is ready to go for training camp despite shoulder soreness the second-year player experienced earlier this month. Richardson underwent season-ending shoulder surgery in 2023 after an AC joint sprain in week 5. He was a full participant throughout OTAs and day 1 of minicamp. He left day 2 of minicamp early and sat out the final day. Richardson, head coach Shane Steichen, and general manager Chris Ballard all downplayed the issue, with Richardson telling reporters that the soreness was normal and expected during his recovery. USA Today's Paul Brettel suggested, if needed, further proof that Richardson's shoulder is in good shape is that he and the wide receiver unit will be getting together during their time off for a second minicamp, as Richardson put it, and the opportunity to get into a groove heading into training camp, which begins July 24. Richardson, the fourth pick in the 2023 draft, scored 17-plus fantasy points in his first 3 games, which included a 27.6-point performance in Week 4. His 22.1-point-per-game average through Week 4 ranked 4th among all fantasy QBs. Richardson is QB8 on the Footballguys consensus 2024 draft rankings. He's QB5 on my own Footballguys rankings. Links to the pertinent rankings can be found below. And that's also his current ADP on Underdog. Is that too expensive? Yes and no. In a vacuum, I'd be reluctant to put all my eggs in the Richardson basket, but we don't live or draft in a vacuum, and I'm willing to burn an earlier than I'd like pick on a player I view as a lottery ticket, a winning lottery ticket, because the list of quarterbacks I'll be able to draft in double-digit rounds includes names I'd be comfortable starting any given weekend. That includes Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Baker Mayfield, among others. So the bottom line here, Richardson has 2 top 5 performances in 4 games last season. I'm drafting like that's just the tip of the iceberg. Headline number 4, Hall shooting for overall running back 1 status. Despite returning to play after a torn ACL that cut short a promising 2022 season, Breece Hall eventually came back strong last year, ranking 4th in all-purpose yards with 1,584 and collecting 9 total touchdowns. Hall especially found a groove near the end of the season, recording 191, 126, and 190 all-purpose yards in the Jets' final 3 games. Hall said last week that 20 months after his injury, he feels stronger than ever, and his output over those final games could indicate his true potential for the 2024 campaign. An offense that looks stronger with the return of Aaron Rodgers and some other key additions, including an upgraded offensive line, that adds to the optimism. But more than that, Hall is determined to prove he belongs among the upper echelon of running backs. He'll get his chance right away with a head-to-head matchup against the gold standard at the position, as the Jets have a Week 1 meeting with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers. As I laid out in my top 5 fantasy headlines 2 weeks ago, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon Barkley are all in hot pursuit of McCaffrey for that running back 1 spot. Hall is in the thick of that race too. In fact, his running back 2 spot directly behind McCaffrey on both the Footballguys consensus and my own 2024 draft rankings, 1 ahead of Robinson, makes Hall the most likely to get the job done. That said, you're paying for it. Hall is currently being drafted as running back 3 with the 8th pick overall on Underdog, 2 spots after Bijan. Gibbs and Barkley, who have more affordable upside, are going with the 13th and 19th picks overall, respectively. But the bigger picture, knowing there's plenty of running back 1 overall upside available down the line if you miss out on McCaffrey, is encouraging for those of us who don't get one of the first few picks. Headline number 5, Metcalf positioned to exceed expectations. There was a lot of talk after the Seahawks mandatory minicamp about Jackson Smith-Njigba being ready to move up in the pecking order ahead of Tyler Lockett. And that's great. You know who he's not moving past? DK Metcalf. Yep. Overlooking the talk about JSN were incoming head coach Mike Macdonald's comments about Metcalf. Macdonald stated the obvious. He's a big, imposing, fast, powerful receiver. But Macdonald also said the new coaching staff wants to get the ball to Metcalf a lot and make him a moving target. Metcalf absolutely has the physical tools he needs to be among the best wide receivers in the league. At 6'4" and 235 pounds, Metcalf posted the fastest speed in the NFL last season, 22.23 miles per hour on a 73-yard touchdown catch. Leaning into that speed and those physical attributes, Metcalf has become one of the league's most consistent producers at the position, putting up substantial numbers under Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, and on different offensive coordinators. Now, Metcalf will work under coordinator Ryan Grubb, whose scheme will be a departure from norms in Seattle. Last season, the Seahawks had the 17th most pass attempts, 33 per game. Meanwhile, Grubb's teams at the University of Washington had one of the highest pass rates in the country. Over the last 2 years, Grubb called passing plays 61.8% of the time. The Huskies averaged an FBS high 355.8 passing yards per game and ranked 15th in dropback percentage over that span while operating at a very high tempo. The results? Washington ranked 6th in the FBS with 487 yards per game last year. They were also 6th in scoring with 36.7 points per game. But Metcalf is currently being drafted in the 3rd round as wide receiver 20 on Underdog. If Smith is on point this year, Metcalf will finish closer to wide receiver 1 than wide receiver 3 territory. That's it for me, Bob Harris. I'll be back here next Friday with more of the fantasy news that matters most to you. Also, watch for my fantasy notebook every Monday morning at footballguys.com.